An excerpt from an essay by Danica Rimbaud entitled The Good Old Ways, They Ain't What They Used to Be. But just because a prejudice is commonly or even universally found among the changing breeds does not make it inherently noble or reliable. For every ritually unclean practice or state of being with objectively deleterious effects, such as eating the flesh of a creature while wearing its equivalent shape, there is some other ban or taboo with no rigorous underlying justification. Consider, for example, the pitiable condition of the chimera, those Aratha who have lost their integrity of form. The possible variation to the predator's shape abound, from bull's horns and monkey tails among the Garou and Bastet, to tentacles and barbed spines among the Rokia. There was even once an entire lineage of Macaulay in the Upper Nile whose war forms uniformly displayed 2 heads. While such departures from the more familiar means of the ancient predator kings have been noted among those who debase themselves in service of the Idigam, the correlation is wildly inconsistent. The causation is, verifiably, nil. It is in our most fundamental nature to change, and some of us, it seems, have always changed more than others. Yet we have long looked on such exemplars of natural variation with fear, disdain, and, not infrequently, rage. For 79 generations, the Litany of Fenris has included some variation on the quatrain, "The storm-tongue's justice is cold and clear. 5 are the crimes that we cannot forgive. The oath-breaker, kinslayer, leech friend, or worm, and thou shalt not suffer the chimera to live." The contradiction is clear, even in the text itself. If irregular form were simply a sure sign of having danced the black spiral, it would have been covered under the general heading of worm. But there is something special about the unreasoning hatred and fear that our people have so frequently shown the Aratha of unusual traits. It is, I believe, a deep instinctive horror at the idea that our precious, sacred, changeable forms are less dependable and predictable than we would like to believe.
In the decades and centuries since its great tragedy, the city of Salem, Massachusetts has become a sanctuary for the strange, the unusual, and yes, the supernatural. Werewolves, vampires, fairies, mages, and other more esoteric things now walk the streets in relative safety. And when the mortal population gets too curious, they do what any community would do. They form a committee. Welcome to The Chimera, a role-playing adventure podcast. Our campaign this season is called Gallows Hill, and it takes place in our version of the World of Darkness, the setting that encompasses Vampire the Masquerade and all its sibling products. I'm Vin LeBate, and I play 8-Ball, a vampire with mental health issues and an assortment of fake IDs, and joining me this season are...
I'm Braden Lamb, and I play Mew, a mummy cat who's into urban planning and sacred geometry.
I'm Jeffrey Bard, and I play Jack Foxglove, a werewolf shaman who coaches the Salem High School football team, the Salem High Witches.
I'm Ethan Bremner, and I play Mother McCree, an immortal Irish witch and American Civil War veteran.
I'm Kacey Smith, and I play Truly Reynard, an animalistic fairy running from her past, sometimes literally.
And I'm Kelly Weissman Asbruce Jackson, the storyteller.
Now, let's get started.
All right, so let's review what happened at the end of the last episode. We split the party into two
did
groups.
Something happen?
One of which went to visit one of the other members of the Sistren of the Bitter Well to see about reconstituting a piece of paper, and one of which went to go visit Ishmael in his jail cell. The group that went to go visit the Sistren about getting the piece of paper reassembled successfully got the piece of paper reassembled, and that piece of paper I think is pretty conclusive evidence that at least Mayor Espinoza and possibly previous mayors have been in some sort of direct communication with the former, well, I guess maybe not former, but the Prince in absentia of the city of Salem, and that he warned Mayor Espinoza about Bacurius of Cartley, a former mayor of Salem and the only former mayor of Salem to have been exiled, current Prince of Hartford, that I believe the line was, the couriers of Cartley rises in the west. And so presumably Mayor Espinosa's departure from the city is to go and
he said to meet in the place, meet in the same, I forget the term, but meet at the meeting place that we know of because we're in cahoots with each other.
Right. Mr. Chamberlain was like, where.
Also, Becurious of Cartley killed Jeff's great-grand?
Oh, yeah.
Grandfather.
Yeah.
Yes. We also established that in the conflict that resulted in Becurious of Cartley being exiled from Salem after the end of his term, his mayoral term, that conflict, among other things, was the cause of the death of Jeff's grandfather. So that was that party, right? Anything else we should say about that grouping? I think they'd really resolved what they went to do. They did the thing that they had set out to do. The other group went to go and visit Ishmael in his jail cell and had a conversation with him in which they were on the verge of setting him free when they sort of inadvertently stumbled onto a jailbreak when two people, two things at least, one recognizable as Mr. Bartholomew, another figure, so giant insectoid monstrosity, has elements combining like one of those especially gross house centipedes with all the little spindly legs, and a housefly. That's Mr. Bartholomew. And then the other figure was a very fastidiously coiffed blonde woman with kind of a 1950s aesthetic. Came up through a tunnel in the floor, apparently there to bust Ishmael out. And Ishmael was like a little bit disgruntled that the timing was exactly not right. Could have been a little earlier, could have been a little bit later. This is not the optimal time to arrive. So that's where we left things. Anybody else have anything to remind us about what's going on or things they think?
Yeah, Ishmael had just revealed a secret that he had been keeping but was no longer keeping for Jack's, was it his uncle, his grandfather? No, his father?
His uncle.
His uncle.
Yeah.
The Chief Justice Fenn Foxglove.
Yeah, is that he, like the prior heads of household of the Foxglove clan, is a chimera.
Yes.
Whatever that means.
Whatever that means.
Does that have meaning in the changeling sense in this version of the setting or no?
What do you mean by in the changeling sense?
Like in the original version of changeling, like a chimera was a thing of dream.
Oh, sure. I don't think it has the same implication in New World of Darkness. I think Hobgoblin kind of replaces it, actually.
Okay.
Is a chimera something that truly, or 8-ball, they'd hear that word and be like, oh, that's a this? Or like, my question is, what the fuck does that mean? And I just want to know if that's also my question in character.
I think in character, both characters will have a similar response to it.
Okay.
What the fuck response? Shouldn't be something that is obviously meaningful to either Truly or 8-ball.
Beyond the Greek.
Yeah.
However, we have heard the phrase chimeric script.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
So my other question is, how much do we know about Mr. Bartholomew? Like, is he a known figure?
Yeah, he has yes, sure. He's kind of one of the monstrous peripheral members of the Salem community along with Ishmael.
Mm-hmm.
Similar categorization, right? Like, is officially a member of Veiled Salem, but kind of outside the consensus. Maybe like sort of so creepy and monstrous that he can't even fit in with the other monsters kind of feel to him, right?
But it's known that he was a mage before, or a dabbler in the arcane arts.
Yeah, I think certainly 8-ball knows that. I'm not 100% that Truly would know that offhand. It's not a secret by any means. It's just a matter of like how much local civic lore do you have.
Okay.
And we did not really strictly establish where Mew is at this point. So I'm probably just going to say Mew is still in the mayor's office unless you specifically want him to be somewhere else. Right?
No, that makes some sense.
He's measuring the curtains,
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
He's got stuff to do. He's got to think about which furniture he's going to rearrange.
Nap on the chair.
Oh, for sure.
I think he's sort of testing the limits of what Ghost Jeeves will and won't do for the mayor.
Yeah, there's probably a series of back and forths about yes, I will do that. No, I won't do that. Well, I would do that if 5/5 of the mayor told me to do that, but I won't do it for 1/5 of the mayor.
Okay.
He's setting his own boundaries just now because he's never had this situation either.
Well, it's less than majority of the mayor. It seems like that's question. I need to consult more than a plurality, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we feel caught up. I want to make sure we feel caught up before we jump back into the action.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's just been a tremendous upheaval, right? Tunnel opens up. There's these two people who just spring out of it. Ishmael, who's been released from his bonds already by you guys, is kind of nonplussed about it. After he says what he said to Mr. Bartholomew and the other person, he turns to 8-Ball and Truly and is like, you have very little time to decide. Does our deal stand or not?
Not seeing a lot of options.
Yeah, I think we're good.
All right. He immediately sort of turns, gestures, and he and his cohorts sort of jump back down the hole, and they're beating their step. Now, at the other, there's just been this obviously really loud noise, probably some seismic activity as a result of the burrowing. So the door to the jail is sort of jangling open because remember, there's a guard on the other side. Anything you folks specifically want to do while that is happening?
Well, Mew and Amal are making their way down there to figure out what the hell happened.
Yeah, there's probably been some disruption enough that they would notice it. Sure. So that's going to take a little bit though, because it's not like the mayor's office is right next to the jail cell.
Truly is gonna grab 8-Ball and take a deep breath, and she's gonna pull her into Ishmael's cell and close the door. And she's like, just drop on the ground and play dead. Should be easy, right? You're a vampire.
8-Ball does so.
Yeah, Truly does the same thing.
Okay, so you close the door to Ishmael's cell, and you're playing dead. Shepherd Jalen Scold bursts through the door, brandishing a battle axe. Just an instant after you've clicked the door shut and dropped to the floor, and as he does so, the tunnel starts to collapse behind the fleeing prisoner. So he just looks around, sees the rubble, sees the broken down tunnel, sees you on the floor, gets out of the keys again, and starts to open up the door of the cell. Truly, 8-Ball, are you dead?
I mean, usually. What the fuck was that?
Truly kind of sits up and rubs her eyes. She's like, oh, wow, what happened? What's going on?
What did happen? Where's the prisoner?
The floor kind of exploded.
And then you came in and you had keys.
Ishmael escaped.
I think I hit my head. 8-Ball sort of pauses, looks around. Yes?
It does appear that way. Shit.
How could he open a tunnel in the floor? That seems... Well, it seems like something he would have done earlier, I guess, but are you all right? Do you need aid?
No, I think I'm okay. I mean, a little dizzy, but otherwise I feel all right. Nothing hurts.
Yeah, if all my parts are still attached, I'm fine.
All right. He sort of leerily, seeing that you're intact and whatnot, there's nothing immediate that he can or needs to do there. He starts to sort of, he kind of picks at the rubble. I mean, he's a really burly troll guy, right? So it's not hard for him to move individual pieces, but there's so many and so much of it. He'd be here for a while, digging it out with no tools. All right. I'm going to have to alert the keeper of the crook about this.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
I'm definitely going to be in some trouble.
I mean, I don't think you control the floor.
No, you're going to vouch for me, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
We're one another's witnesses here.
Okay.
I guess I should go and inform the rest of the mayor.
Oh, yeah.
What happened?
Yeah, that makes sense. Man, I'm never going to hear the end of this from Grey Malkin.
Yeah, we'll be around. You have my number.
Keep us posted.
All right. As you're leaving the jail area, that's about the time when Mew and Amal show up.
Hey, guys. Small escape.
Escape.
Yeah. You know what? We should probably get everyone together. Let's meet up with Jack and McCree at the Tuck Alley office. Since they're out, we're here. That's probably the most halfway place so that they don't have to ford the bay to get. Yeah, let's do that. I text them. Well, I text Jack.
Right. So, jump cut to the Tuck Alley office.
Okay.
Actually, before that, just a little bit. On the way to there, Mother McCree's going to check Jack's pulse on this. This is, this gentleman killed your grandfather.
Well, I mean, you're not my blood, right? But that's what happens. You get old, you lose a step, you can't keep up in a fight. You get your throat torn out. I mean, that's kind of the way it works. He was a good guy, but it's bad for not being able to keep up.
Getting old and losing a step, eh? Well, I've got all my steps, but it's a harsh take, lad. But it's good to check your pulse on that, because I just wanted to check to see if, I know what happens when your type gets angry, so.
Well, I mean, it's. I'm not saying I wouldn't, want to have a few words with him if I met him again, but certainly it's not going to, make me want to go throw trucks or something.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out which one of these two awful former leaders of our establishment are we going to ally behind, and at which point do we also go against the current leaders of our community? And
well, it sounds like there's a mortal need to deal with the guy over in the west or the east. That's probably what we need to do first.
The note said the west, but my question is he can't be worse than Chamberlain.
I only know the stories, right? But
I know the reality.
Oh, what's the reality then?
Chamberlain's a dirtbag.
I love how totally inelegant that is. Yeah, I think we established that Mother McCree had at least some personal experience with Chamberlain directly, but probably not with Becurious. I mean, he was only mayor for 7 years. That's a pretty small amount of her life, and she.
Do you know what years?
Yeah, he was mayor from 85 to 92.
Yeah, we sorted it last time, and I think we decided that you were familiar enough to know who he was.
Yeah.
But not to have spent time with him.
Yeah. She has no strong opinion about Vicarious, except for, she liked Jack's grandfather. But she has a much stronger feeling about Chamberlain.
Yeah, I mean, then it seems to me that you know more than me in terms of what we should do here. But to see, our dear mayor get so concerned about something like that, gets under my skin a little bit, for sure.
Kelly, can we, we can get together, I suppose, but okay, so he killed Jack's grandfather. There was a town, I mean, that's not that the entirety of the excuse given to exile him?
So let's get together.
Okay.
Right? Mm-hmm. So we're at the office in Tuck Alley. Have you done anything to the office yet? I mean, it's okay if you haven't. I'm just wondering if you're just setting the scene. Is it still that Spartan,
I don't think we've had
freshly
time,
moved out look?
Yeah,
you haven't had a lot of time.
We've been kind of real time.
Yep.
So I don't think we've really had a lot of office time yet.
We cleaned out the basement of Rabbit Faye. That's what we did.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay, so still undecorated. So now we have everybody together, and It's an opportunity to share the information that everybody has. Anybody not telling the full truth?
Do we have the letter? Like, it's reestablished.
Yeah, because she put it back. She literally remade it, so you have a physical.
Yeah, so yeah, we can just hand the letter to the rest of the group.
I think, presuming that truly doesn't contradict, that 8-Ball is just going to casually leave out the deal part of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise relay the information that we learned and the events.
I think Truly is gonna not mention the chimera thing in front of Jack yet. And she might kind of like gently step on 8-Ball's foot if she tries to, which I mean 8-Ball can ignore, but like she'll make it obviously enough that she doesn't really want to, like, whatever it means, she wants to understand what it means before she hits like Jack with it in case this is really bad or, you know, devastating or something.
Yeah, when we get to that point, 8-Ball keeps talking without mentioning it. And she sort of like, without looking, swirls her magic 8-Ball, tilts it, glances down, and just, continues without mentioning that part.
Okay. So basically, Espinosa went to go meet with Mr. Chamberlain at some pre-appointed location. It's about the issue of a threat posed by Bacurius of Cartley, and Ishmael has escaped from the jail. Those are the things that are on the table, right?
And he was hunting people with chimeric script inscribed on their bones and was trying to like do something that he thought was helpful to the city. Like that part they're going to share.
Right.
Just not the bit where they let him out or the bit where he has a big, deep, dark secret about the foxgloves.
And remind me, there was some like portent he was trying to prevent or help the city avoid, right? Or am I remembering that wrong?
I believe he said that he was trying to repair a seal.
Yeah, he was trying to reestablish some sort of protective magic thing involving chimeric script.
Well, Mew says, I think Ishmael has gone up a couple of notches in my estimation. If he's concerned with the welfare of the veiled citizens of this city, and presumably the non-veiled as well.
Just for clarification, because I'm reading the Deep Forest, Mr. Bartholomew is a wanted man, right?
Yeah, I mean,
like the same way Ishmael is.
Right.
But Ishmael was part of the community, whereas we have here that the Good Shepherds were looking to slay him, Mr. Bartholomew.
Yeah, I think it's true that he's more on the outs than Ishmael was, but he was definitely a citizen of Salem before he became an insect monster. right. Okay. So he didn't stop being a citizen of Salem. He's just like definitely also killed other citizens in the course of being an insect monster.
And I know this is the weirdest metric to use because of Mother Macrina, and he doesn't go to the meetings, presumably.
Everybody with a sigil, everybody with that sign on them is entitled to go to a meeting.
Oh, sure.
Even if they're in jail or there's effectively a warrant for them.
Okay.
Now, it's problematic to get to and from a meeting because you can still be arrested under those circumstances, but you can't be arrested during the meeting as long as you don't break the rules of the meeting. So he has probably been to a meeting once or twice since he became an insect monster.
Okay.
But he's definitely not a regular fixture there because it's hard for him. A, he probably doesn't care. But also B, it's hard for him to go and leave. Right.
And as far as we know, the Good Shepherds still intend to kill him.
That's an interesting question. I mean, he's been on the lam so long, something might have changed. Just the same way as like if Ishmael had been arrested, you know, in the 20s, it probably would have been different than being arrested now.
Sure.
I don't think that, you know, the Good Shepherds are the cops.
Sure.
Right. In our analogy of town government, but they're so informal, right? There's only 7 of them.
Right.
I'm not sure that it's generally held like who's exactly in trouble.
He's a wanted man. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like there's wanted posters or anything.
Okay. And now my other question about the exact circumstances around Bacurius being exiled.
Yes. So let's think about this. We've established Mother McCree, of course, was alive then and a Salem resident then, but wasn't there for the meeting.
Right.
And I think we've at least implied that Jack has heard about it, but wasn't actually there. He would have been a minor still.
Mm-hmm.
Probably early teens, I'm guessing, in 92. How old is Jack?
Jack
40,
is
45?
He's like 40, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, like early mid-teens. So it would make sense. Like probably maybe hadn't experienced his first change yet, so he wasn't at the meeting.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Truly wasn't even a citizen yet.
No.
Right?
Right.
8 Ball in 92. Was 8 Ball there yet?
No.
That leaves Mew.
Yeah, I think Mew was resting at that point.
Okay.
Amal was not in town until 2019.
I guess what I would want to know is what the official word was, because I'm not sure Mother McCree would just swallow he killed someone as, yeah.
I would say your best bet is to talk to somebody who was at the meeting.
Okay.
In 92.
All right.
There's probably also like a trial record or something, right? Or an official decree.
Yeah. You might be able to find something about that. That would probably be back at All Hallows Hall.
Yeah.
You could talk to the clerk. The clerk of the court, rather, not the clerk of the treasury.
My one other lingering question is, did we recognize that other lady at all?
Did you recognize the other lady at all? I'm going to say truly, probably, like maybe it's a face you've seen before. And the fact that she has this kind of, 50s thing going on is definitely slightly distinctive, but it's just it's just a human looking thing.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's somebody you would say, oh, maybe I've seen somebody like that around, but probably not. I think 8 Ball, maybe I'd like to have you roll something. It's like it's really just a random matter of, do you remember something or not? Well, you've got records though, right? If you've helped anybody before,
yeah,
you've got a record that you keep.
Mm-hmm.
And that's good enough to jog a memory. Yeah, that person it was a while ago, and it wasn't very memorable, but they have come to you for an ID before, probably like over a decade ago.
Mm-hmm.
The timetable works, right? 8 Ball's been in Salem longer than that.
Yeah, roundabout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it would have been fairly early on in 8 Ball's time. And you gave her an ID with an alias, right? It wasn't supposed to be her real name. It's just like, I need to have a driver's license so I can do things. Right? I need to be able to operate in society.
Yeah.
But she referred to herself as Betty Fission.
Okay.
That's what your notes say.
I'm going to go through my stuff and see if I can, through a combination of like my records and the internet, pull up some kind of like phone number or email for her.
So yeah, you had a number when not an email, but you had a number. Because you have a record from, you did business with this person. You want to have a way to contact them again.
Yeah.
So you have a phone number from that, not from the internet. There's nothing obvious connected to the alias that you gave her. Okay.
I will probably just shoot off a text that's like, what up, B-Dog? We should chat.
Okay. I've had this happen to me before. You know that thing where you text a landline and then it texts back to you and is like, this is a landline?
Mm-hmm.
So that happens.
Okay.
1950s, man. She really goes all the way.
Yeah. In that case, I'll do some reverse phone book stuff and get an address for it.
Okay. There's an address. It's like an apartment in Beverly. There's a couple of different apartment buildings on the waterfront in Beverly. It's in one of those.
Okay. Yeah, we can probably figure out how to chat with her at some point. I'm not going to call right now because we're in a meeting, but that is an option we may have.
I mean, at some point, we've got to set priorities.
And it's been pretty recent. She's probably still on the move.
Yeah.
But at some point, we're going to have to set priorities over Ishmael versus the mayor cohorting with dirtbags to prevent against former exiles of the community.
Yeah. I feel like I
believe that Ishmael may be the more pressing issue. His his efforts include the murder of innocents. And if he's resuming these efforts, there will be more murders. We could attempt to track him down and offer, if I may, your services, Mother McCree. Is it possible you could...
Does he need some strong coffee?
No, but if I had something written on the inside of my bones, would you be able to see that?
That sounds disgusting, and I'd rather not see it, but...
Without taking me apart.
Yeah, I suppose I probably could do that.
If you went looking for it, I think you could.
Yeah, I feel like I would like to get a whole clearer picture on this magical protective situation. Right? Does that sound right?
Yeah.
It does.
I mean, at this point, we're the mayors of the city, so we probably should be keeping it safe, but I do have some words I'd like to prepare for the the mayor when he gets back.
Yeah.
So I got a question, for the group. Just it's kind of occurred to me, just sort of thinking some things. So we have, a chimeric script, right? But has anyone actually ever heard of a thing called chimera? Anyone? Jack, maybe you've ever heard anything like that? I don't know.
Chimera? Yeah, let me make an occult and intelligence roll and see if I remember anything like that.
just incredible, sparkling in-character dialogue.
Is that right, Kelly? Is that about right?
Yes. Just a second. I'm going to message you in the
okay.
Slack.
Uh-oh.
There's no chance any of us would know, right?
I feel like Mew probably gets a roll.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Since well, I mean, he hasn't had a history of researching this, but since it's come up, he's gotten more interested in it. I don't know if he's had the opportunity to delve into it at length.
I think that both Mew and Mother McCree can make an int plus occult roll. It'll be a difficult one for both of you, but you're welcome to roll.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's 4 plus... Do 10s keep exploding?
Yes.
Right. It's going to be 6 successes.
Ooh.
On 5 dice, let me tell you.
Wow.
Damn.
Wow. 3.
0.
Okay. Yeah, nothing from you or Mother McCree. Trying to think. Sorry, Jeff. I'm just trying to give you an example here. I'm trying to find a neutral example.
Oh, I think I know where it's going.
I have no idea.
Okay. That makes sense.
That come through clearly enough.
Mm-hmm.
It's also a thing from first edition. Wait, I think it's actually not a first thing from first edition. It's a thing from a different. It's a thing I'll explain the White Wolf related origin for to you, but basically it has an establishment in canon.
Okay. Yeah. So I think I've heard of it before. Usually when someone like me, Aratha, who I don't know, gets their spirit form kind of confused, and they start taking on parts of other predators instead of just I'm a wolf, right? I channel the wolf spirit, and then there's others like sharks, right, who channel the predator spirit of the shark, or that idea of what a shark might be. They might do both. They might have a shark's mouth and a wolf's tail when they change. So that's where I've heard of chimera before. I'm not sure if that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Is that like what's that mean to folks like you? Is like that a big deal, or just kind of cool looking, or?
This is an interesting question, Jeff. I get the perception, based on the way that the character is played out, that like social cues aren't exactly Jack's bag.
Yeah, they're so body language is right, but social cues maybe not, right? Like he knows how to intimidate somebody with his body,
right,
but not necessarily pick up that somebody like was uncomfortable around him, right?
Right. I think Jack understands that it is an embarrassing and potentially even shameful thing among the Aratha to be a chimera.
And that would be my first instinct too.
And may have the grasp on the fact that in fact it can even be, it probably doesn't matter as much here. This is a less fun. Overall, the intra-camp violence in Salem is very low compared to the rest of the world, pretty much. But you can be killed over it in the wrong pack or the wrong sept.
Yeah, I could also see that, like, from Jack's perspective, like, the spiritual integration of, like, that would be something that he would almost see as being wrong. Like that's not supposed to be. Like, that's not how spirits work. And that's how he would kind of describe it, I think.
But as far as social cues, he is also not picking up on the fact that Mew is annoyed that Jack keeps getting the drop on him with all this occult lore.
No, Jack doesn't even recognize it. Why do you ask? Truly,
I like I said, just chimeric script. I figured it. Script comes from somewhere, right? Like, but I don't know if that's the same chimera that you're talking about. It might be something different. So
do you think like an Aratha wrote those things?
No, I think something older than any of our kind wrote those things. But I just wonder why it was called chimeric script. But I think what you're describing might be, sometimes one word can mean different things at different times, and maybe that's what this is.
Yeah, like there and there.
Right.
I always get those confused.
Okay, so do we want to try and make an appointment to talk to Ishmael's group and see if we can get a better picture?
I mean, we could just hunt him down.
I mean, I have a phone number.
Oh, okay.
Let's not rule it out.
It's more fun to hunt him down.
Yeah, but I think we want to start by talking to them.
We could hunt them down and then talk to them.
For a change, I kind of agree with the young vampire here. It's far more reasonable to just go to an address.
All right, fine.
Yeah, you know what? I'm just going to call that number.
It rings. It rings again, and then it picks up, and the voice on the other end says, "Hi, you've reached the Perkins family. Mary Jo, Philip, Tom, and little Polly. Just so you know, we don't check this a lot, so maybe call us on our cells. Thanks."
8-Ball says, "Hi, I'm not sure if this is the right number. I have a message for Betty. This is her physician, Dr. Ball. I am just calling for a follow-up. Could you just give me a ring back so that we can make sure that all of our ducks are in a row? That'd be great. I think you have my number. Yep. Bye." Okay, so I don't know if that's actually the right number. So we should.
Were you going to go try to talk to somebody about what happened when Becurius was exiled?
I mean, yeah, that's where Mother McCree's coming from, because at this point, she's pretty clearly like not interested in the Ishmael situation. Like she feels that that's going to resolve itself.
Right. She's moved along from that. She's moved along from that because she's really not okay with the mayor's situation in general. Mm-hmm.
And this is just window dressing to that situation, because at this point she doesn't feel like she needs to answer to the mayor when he returns.
Mm-hmm.
He needs to answer to her.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds reasonable while we're waiting for a callback.
Okay, who do you want to try to talk to?
Clerk?
The clerk of the court. Sure. So that means back to All Hallows Hall, right?
I mean, yeah, if we can. Yeah.
Okay, so back at All Hallows Hall, the courts are open, but there's nothing particular going on, so it's not hard to speak to the clerk of the archives of the court, Benedetto the Scrivener. She's a somewhat petite woman, even for a fae. She has long pointy ears and frizzy hair. She's wearing kind of over elaborate uniform that looks like it might be of her own devising, with like epaulets and stuff. Yeah, she's like looking over papers and scribbling with a very ornate feather quill, like, the length of it stretches out up and curls around and is easily half her height as she's writing with it.
What time is it?
Sometime in the late evening by now, probably after midnight.
Good evening, child. Would you be a dear and go get us the file on, well, there should have been a meeting, and it would have been in the,
Give us the file on when Bacurius killed in court.
Yes, that one.
Oh, you want the record from Samhain 1992?
92. Yes, yeah, that sounds right.
All right. She goes into a back room. There's some clattering and shifting noises, file drawers being opened, boxes moving around. Comes back out with a manila folder, somewhat thick with paperwork, opens it up, says, all right. Do you want me to just read you the record, or was there something specific you wanted?
That would be lovely, dear.
So she will read you out loud there are stenographers' records for all of the town meetings, right?
Yes.
Which, completionist as I might be, I have not actually written it. I will confess. So I'm not going to actually read you.
We finally found the line.
Transcript. You found the depth of my advanced preparation for this game. I do not have the entire proceedings of every single town meeting written out.
All right.
Verbatim.
This is funny because you need to know that I just started writing one. And I told you about this one, I just started writing the minutes to a town meeting.
That's amazing.
So I'm establishing that this is it's in detailed verbatim minute form from the town meeting. So let's see. At the Samhain in which an election is held, right? So the election for mayor is held every 7 years on Samhain, right? So not every Samhain is the same, but on the Samhain when an election is being held, there is a statement by the outgoing mayor, usually sort of summarizing the accomplishments of their administration and thanking the people for the honor of serving them. And it's a place where you can make sort of subtle indications of who you think they should vote for next, but it's considered bad form to actually endorse anybody in that statement. And then there's a whole complicated rigmarole for the election of the next mayor. And there's much pomp and circumstance that's expected. All of you have been through at least one of those before, so you know what it's supposed to look like.
And remind me, you, as mayor, after 7 years, you have to step down.
That is right. It's a single term that the mayor is limited to. It's a 7-year term. A mayor can run for re-election, but only after 50 years have passed from the completion of their previous term. Right. So you got to wait. So the Curious of Cartley's statement is kind of normal, opening up the meeting, right? He's talking about all the things we accomplished, good things we've done together. But unlike a normative one, he actually says, the Constitution of the City of Salem, while it is an august and beautiful document, it has its limitations and frailties. And clearly, my beloved community, I know that you understand that these are incredibly challenging times that we are in. And the times that we are in call for bold and powerful leadership. And for that reason, I am putting before the assembly to be voted on immediately a motion to amend the city constitution to allow mayors to run for consecutive terms. And at this point in the notes, it says there's a general commotion. It became impossible for the stenographer to keep a verbatim account of everything that was said because there were so many voices speaking over each other. However, previous mayor of the city of Salem, Archibald Foxglove, rose to speak in opposition, and eventually the crowd quieted enough to hear him speak against this, saying this was not in order at this time. It's contrary to the values of the city and all who hold it dear. It endangered the peace and the entire system under which they had lived, the people of Salem had lived safely for so long. And at this, there was further commotion, there was further argument, and a fight broke out. That's all it says in the notes. A fight broke out. There was a general melee. The notes do not keep track of exactly who participated in it, but it was definitely much larger than just Becurius and Archibald. And at the end of it, Archibald was dead. Becurius had been restrained by former mayors Espinoza and Treme. And that was the end of it. The motion was withdrawn. A new mayor was elected, that mayor being Fenton Foxglove, Archibald's son, Jack's uncle. And once elected, the new mayor put it before the assembly to exile Becurius of Carli from the provisions of Salem, and the motion passed.
No reasons given, I mean, aside from he literally just killed my father.
Becurius of Carli represents, I mean, he has a statement that he makes, and Becurius of Carli represents an existential threat to Salem and the peace thereof. Out of an abundance of magnanimity and owing to the fact that he's my immediate predecessor, I will not call for his execution at this time, but I ask that the people consider exiling him. That requires a vote of the community. I am your loyal servant and will exercise the public will. It passed, however, without incident by a large majority.
So that sounds like it escalated very quickly from civic proposition to violence. Is that a reasonable read of that?
I mean, in terms of the space in the transcript, from when Becurius of Carli makes the motion to when the line says, and now this person is dead, right? Yeah, it's pretty quick.
Yeah, like it wasn't debated. It wasn't like...
I mean, the debate began. The debate began with Becurius introducing it, then Archibald speaking against it, and then there was a fight.
That's not much of a debate, but yeah.
It was not thoroughly debated. I wouldn't say that it was given a lot of airing. No.
So one might think that there were other factors involved.
I think one might think that.
That would be a reasonable conclusion.
Any chance there was a video recording at this time, Ms. Benedetta?
We do not make video recordings of the proceedings of city governments. I could see if there's a reel-to-reel. I think that's what we were using in 92.
Please do.
Okay, she goes back and there's more shuffling and a couple of crashes and moving around the boxes. And she comes out with, a reel-to-reel tape, right? The audio recording. Like, okay, yeah, it's here if you want to listen to it.
May we sign this out?
Well, it's part of the public record, so I can't just give it over to you. I mean, I wouldn't want to. It's an important piece of the archive. She seems very, very protective about it.
I don't know if the information has gotten down here yet. Technically, we're the mayor right now, so it would be for mayoral business.
Oh yeah, Truly still has the form, so she puts it on the desk.
Oh, it's clearly news to Benedetta. Well, then of course.
Thank you.
She still looks a little bit like wincy, like it's hard for her to hand it over. She doesn't like somebody else handling the files, but clearly you have the authority to do it. So
we'll get it back in one piece. Don't worry. Maybe we should take this to our office here.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if there was a reel-to-reel in the office.
In like a closet.
There's certainly one somewhere in All Hallows Hall. So you can get a reel-to-reel player somewhere in the building and take it to the office, definitely.
We may also have to sign that out from someone else.
I think so.
As we're walking away, and once we're like away from prying ears, Mother McCree will say, "Didn't we establish that all of these mayors, including the two who just killed them, who fought each other in this proceeding we just read, didn't we establish they were all in communication with Chamberlain?"
Yeah, that's what it seemed like.
They were all in potential.
Certainly, it seemed like everybody had the opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we established the possibility.
Just a thought I had.
Yeah.
Anyways, reel to reel. That's one of those newfangled things, right?
It was once.
Yeah, why don't I handle this?
All right, you say if you use a reel-to-reel player, right, you set it up. It's a big spool of thin magnetic tape. You put it on one side, you thread it through the other side. It's a little bit of a operation to turn it on.
Yeah, It's definitely backwards the first time.
Mm-hmm. But once you get it going, there's like a little preamble it's in Benedetto the Scrivener's voice. She was still the clerk of the archives at that time, saying like, this is a recording of the meeting of the City of Salem's conclave, Samhain evening, 1992. Final meeting of the tenure of Mayor Becurius of Cardley. And then it goes through, she read you a transcript, so you have heard pretty much verbatim what is on the tape, but you can hear Becurius's voice, which is very deep and resonant and powerful. You can hear the crowd's response when he introduces the motion, which is a mixture of cheering and booing. You can hear Archibald's voice, which is a little bit, it's also strong, but also you can hear his age in it, and the emotion, which is definitely very strong and deeply felt. There's also both cheering and booing after he speaks, and then the noise of a conflict. There's growls and shouts and pretty incoherent, like probably people yelling at each other, but you can't really make out what it is. Noises of things knocking around, and some very nasty crunching noises, and a couple of squishier ones. And then, sort of order is restored and the election is held. Fenton is elected. He makes his motion. The assembly votes to exile Becurius.
Are there any, is there any dissent to the order, to the request to exile him?
There are no speakers after the motion.
And are any of the voices, and I know it's just good general scrum or melee, are any of the voices in support or against the motion, the original motion to extend it? Are any of them discernible? Like, oh, hey, that's clearly so-and-so.
Yeah, like I feel like between the transcript and this, we probably have at least a bit of a picture of some of the people who were there.
Right.
Yeah, so people who you can say with, actually, you have the transcript, right? You have access to the transcript. The transcript has a record of who attended the meeting.
Sure.
So you know for a fact who was in the room and who wasn't.
And just out of curiosity, like when he proposes that the mayoral term be extended or double or whatever, you said there were some voices of agreement and opposition.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any voices of agreement, for example, that would be, yeah, that's clearly, because all the other mayors were there too.
All the other mayors were there, definitely. So, like, who's there? Well, it was almost 30 years ago now. So some people who are citizens now weren't citizens yet, weren't adults yet, or were like, the people who sort of go in and out of active status, like Mew and McCree, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of accounts for some of the people who might otherwise have been present but weren't. And that is before the mage organization currently called the Ordo Athenaeum was really formed, shortly before it actually. So the Magi who were there is probably significantly different than are on the citizen list right now. But I think 30 years ago, it's quite possible Marigold Childress Smythe was already there.
Okay.
Right? So I think that it's probably pretty clear she was, it would be clear. You have a definitely a factual record who was there, who was not.
Sure.
I think that she's old enough that she was there.
Okay.
Right. And maybe one or two of the other current Sistren. I think most of the Sistren have turned over.
Yeah, there's a lot of young ones right now. Yeah.
Right. Who else would have specifically been there? Everybody who's in the Fox. Well, no. Fenn Foxglove and Nathaniel Foxglove, who are both uncles of Jack. They were definitely both there. Gwendolyn Foxglove, his aunt, she was definitely there. Basically, everybody who's currently in the Mayapple Lodge was there, because the membership has changed slightly over time, but not everybody who was there then is on it now.
Well, I guess here, let me ask you this question, because I think it'll clarify what I'm trying to get at.
Sure, yeah.
Was there a delineation of loyalties based on this decision? So in other words, was the Mayapple Lodge tending to the idea of extending the mayorship because their mayor was a member, right? He was Mayapple Lodge, right? Yeah. Obviously the Foxgloves would be opposed to it.
And like maybe related, is there any audio indication of like who kicked off the fight? Like, did anyone get super loud at any point? Like, does anyone?
Who do you think started the fight? Okay,
yeah, like why are fists flying in this situation?
We're a little hamstrung here because I think there are isolatable voices in favor of Bacurius's motion to amend the Constitution. I don't think that any of them are people that your characters know well enough to recognize their voice on an old reel-to-reel.
Okay. I
can't think of anybody that would be easy for you to isolate. Like if Marigold was saying something in favor, certainly Mother McCree would recognize her voice.
What about the other mayors? How about that? There's one.
Yeah, you'd recognize the voices of the other. And you recognize the voices of the other mayors, and Jack would recognize the voices of his immediate family. And so I would say all the Foxgloves were, you can hear them audibly shouting against it and supporting Archibald. And, Artemisia Melancholy, Lady Artemisia Melancholy's voice is highly distinctive. And you can hear her audibly gasp at the motion being made and murmur positively after Archibald speaks against it. I don't think, I wouldn't say that there's any other really obvious isolatable voices that anybody else in the party is in a position to recognize. But I would say Archibald spoke against the mayor's motion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very adamantly and passionately. But he also there's applause and there's he finishes what he says and sits down or has the space to sit down before the violence erupts. It's not punctuated with, and by the way, here's a punch in your face, right?
So presumably someone attacked him shortly after he...
I mean, I'm not trying to be oblique about this. You just don't have the data and evidence.
Okay.
You could go ask somebody who was at the meeting.
Okay, yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah, maybe we should, can we call in your friend Marigold? That sounds like someone we can trust.
I mean, we could always talk to Benton. Want me to give him a call?
Yeah, I kind of want to hear from someone who isn't directly involved in the violent end of things.
Also, I'm not inclined right now to trust any of the previous mayors of the city. No offense, Jack.
I mean, Fenton's a good guy. You can trust him.
That remains to be seen. We could talk to Marigold, but we'd have to go there.
I mean, do you want to make a space portal?
A what?
Open a door in space and she can just come over here?
Are your feet broken?
No, but we're several miles away.
And so?
And we have shit to do.
Child, if you can't walk anywhere, I don't know how we're going to get anything done.
8-Ball just sort of goes on to mumble about how I don't know how we're going to get anything done if we keep having to walk everywhere. But goes along.
We can take my truck.
We're on the island right now.
Call her on the phone.
Yeah, I'm thinking she's more of Mother McCree's type than any of the other. You could probably get the other sister on the phone. Probably not her. She's the other elder member, I believe.
They could go grab her.
Yeah, you could call. One of the.
Yeah, I could call. We just spoke with Esther? Was that her name?
Samantha Esther. Yeah.
Samantha Esther. So yeah, Mother McCree gives a deep sigh, points to where you'd be keeping your cell phone, and says, "If you must talk, you must not go there like a rude person. Properly introducing yourself and asking a question like you should. I suppose you could use that device to contact one of the younger members and have them walk over to her hut."
Right. I will do that. I probably have enough data to have numbers for, members of the community.
Yeah, I think you've probably got that's a solid Rolodex. Yep.
Yeah. So I will do that.
Call Samantha. She'll help you out.
Okay, so, Samantha answers the phone, Sam's phone, and talk a little bit. She goes over to Marigold's hut, gets her on the line. Yes, what is it?
Hi, I'm going to put you on speakerphone over here. So this is the sanitary
Marigold,
commission.
we're the mayors, and we have some questions for you. Some of us are lazier than others, but we all just need to know some questions for you. Do you remember the meeting when the fight broke out between Bakuris and Archibald?
I do. It's a sad day.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what happened? I was away at the time, but I don't understand exactly what went on.
Well, I was there. Bakuris and Cartley tried to make himself mayor in perpetuity. Basically, Archibald spoke against it. He was a good man. Made sense. And I think Bakuris could tell the vote wasn't going to go his way, so he moved to violence, him and some of his supporters. There was a fight. I think everybody had some part in it by the end of it. I mean, it was just a general kind of scrum, but he killed Archibald and was successfully restrained. And that was the end of the violence. I think everyone sort of realized the seriousness of the situation once they saw him dead on the floor.
Was there anything more to his attack? It seems kind of abrupt. No?
Well, that was sort of who he was, It was a strange time when he was mayor. He was a figure of action more than of thought, I would say. Heavy on charisma, light on substance. And, I wasn't sorry to see him go.
All right.
Hi, my name's Jack Foxglove.
Oh, hi, Jack.
Do you remember what killed Archibald? I'm thinking about it more and more lately, just running it through my head. And it's pretty hard to kill us. What ran him through at the end?
Bakuris did, son. He, are you sure you wanted to hear this?
I do, because I keep running it through my head, and I just don't understand how.
Oh, well, he had a silver sword. He stabbed your grandfather in the heart.
He had a what?
Just on him?
That'll do it.
Bakuris, I think he's supposed to be like really, really old. Older than you, Mother McCree. So it was, he always had a sword on his belt. No one really questioned him about it. But yes.
He killed my grandfather with a silver sword?
Yes.
At this point, he kind of pops into his Wolfman form, not the full Krinos form, but the mannish form,
right?
Just out of anger.
Mother McCree kind of faces him and goes, "What about before with the old age and the steps walked?"
No one told me that someone pulled silver on him. This place is supposed to be a place of civilization. We're supposed to be good to one another, and someone pulled silver in a community meeting.
Is there anything specifically forbidding that? Just that we know of?
Violence is definitely forbidden. Any violence at all at the meetings is out of hand.
But bringing something like that.
I feel like it's kind of like showing up to a Justice League meeting carrying kryptonite.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not. There's probably not a provision against it, but it's incredibly bad form.
Right.
It would be like carrying a lit torch into the meeting.
Right.
Or busting out some cold iron. Right. It's super not okay from a social standard point of view.
But it was sheathed, so probably people didn't know. Right.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I think Marigold will happily confirm she had no idea that his sword was silver. It was always in its sheath, right? We don't do a lot of fighting in Salem, so he's just a guy who carries a sword around. Other people carry weapons on them. That's not super unusual.
I believe that's all we need to know.
Yeah, I think that's good. Thank you, Marigold.
Yeah, so Jack is just stomping around, fuming under his breath, trying to work his trying to understand why somebody would do something like that. Yeah.
And thank you, Samantha, for the use of your phone. All right, I have one more line of questioning. Sorry.
No,
not for them, for Kelly.
Huh?
How long was Bicurious in the community, and is there any existent known relationship between him and Chamberlain?
He definitely arrived after Chamberlain left.
Okay, that's all I need.
He's an incredibly powerful vampire from the old world, so I can't promise you that they have no relationship. But did you ever see them in the same place at the same time? Absolutely not.
And it wasn't like one left and one arrived.
No, there was probably a good couple of decades.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so this is sounding more like a failed coup.
Explains the exile, I guess.
Amal, make a note. Shit number 1, Bicurious.
But now I still don't like that Chamberlain is helping fight against it. I don't subscribe to the enemy of my enemy philosophy. My enemies are my enemies.
Also, it's weird that Chamberlain and Espinosa would feel the need. Like, why would Espinosa need to take this on the DL? If he knows that there's an actual threat, why would he hide it from the community?
Because of how he knows.
Right, but he could just make up some shit. He could just say, I've got a spy out there.
Well, he never struck me as a particularly bright fellow.
Yeah, but he's a conniver. Planting spies and making up spies is, I think, in his bag of tricks. It's weird that it's personal.
Well, it does possibly explain Chamberlain's involvement, too, if they're both concerned with protecting Salem. And Mother McCree absolutely puts up finger quotes for that. And that dirtbag Chamberlain wants to protect it for the purposes of possibly returning someday, and Espinosa just feeling like he needs to as part of his job.
Let me clarify something, since Marigold was there, and she's definitely able to fill in the cracks here. Once Archibald was dead, and things had obviously gotten out of hand, and Bicurious had pulled out a silver weapon during the conclave, which clearly was just generally, everybody understands that wasn't okay, right? The mood turned very much against him, and the vote to exile him was basically unanimous. But it wasn't nearly as one-sided when he introduced the motion to amend the Constitution, right? And it's quite possible that the people who voted to exile him, there may have been people among those who voted to exile him who were still in some sense his supporters, but recognized that they couldn't win in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
So a possible explanation for not saying, Bicurious of Cartley is a big danger to everybody, and I'm going to leave town for a little while to go resolve this, might be he still has supporters in the community.
I think we said this before. Espinosa is not a member of the Mayapple Lodge.
He is. Espinosa is the leader of the Mayapple Lodge.
Okay.
Bicurious was not a member of the lodge.
If you want to, this is probably a little bit more esoteric than you individually know, but it's possible for you to reconstruct this. Basically, so Mayapple Lodge is the people, the vampires who came to Salem at the invitation of Mr. Chamberlain and kind of actually the Salem as a community at that time to do some study and research about what was going on with the Umbra and the Veil, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Gauntlet around the city of Salem. And they ended up staying, right? So it's a bunch of old world vampires who are mostly kind of young when they arrived, right? It was kind of they were sort of like young Turks by the standard of the day when they arrived. And then other people people have passed in and out of membership over time. There are a few people who were founding members who are still in Salem who aren't members anymore, probably only one or two. And then there's some folks who've added to the Mayapple Lodge over time, mostly people who were embraced by founding members for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Espinosa is one of the founding members of the Mayapple Lodge, but he's not the founder, right? Because if the original founding leader was Leopold of the Carn, Espinosa became leader after Leopold of the Carn died/disappeared and that magical rite gone wrong. Bicurious of Cartley is the sire of two different founding members of the Mayapple Lodge.
Mm-hmm.
And when he arrived in Salem, he joined the Mayapple Lodge because his kids are already part of it, right? And Espinosa was always the leader of the lodge during that period, but it's definitely pretty clear that his leadership was tenuous during that time because there's someone who is objectively older and more powerful than him. If you want to get into it, if Bicurious of Cartley is as old as he says he is, He's in the top 5 oldest kindred in the Western Hemisphere.
Oh.
He's pre-crucifixion, and that's a big, like, vampires who are that old are very unusual to meet.
8-Ball officially, like, pulls out her phone and adds research Precarious of Cartley to her to-do list, because that's not something she's going to do right now, but she will probably, over the course of the next day or two, try and unravel both his connections in town and his sort of historical presence.
Does she have friends at the Mayapple Lodge?
I mean, friends might be pushing it, but yeah, I know those dudes.
I mean, it's like half of the vampires who live in Salem are members of the Mayapple Lodge, so she knows people there, absolutely.
Yeah.
Is it a physical lodge, out of curiosity?
They must have it.
There's a building.
Yeah.
Like, I could easily talk to any of them. I don't know that I could say which ones I could or could not trust if we are dealing with a situation where there's like
Conspiracy?
mixed loyalties. Yeah, I could not tell you at this point. Give me a couple days, maybe I can.
And they're just as equally likely to be loyal to Chamberlain as they would be to Precarious.
Yeah, and they're all, I mean, it's vampires. We're all sketchy, backstabbing motherfuckers. So, who knows?
Oh, it's good that you're honest about it, dearie.
Yeah, we got 2 real distinct problems here, huh?
2? 3?
I was going to say, you think it's just 2, huh? That's great.
I think we got a couple.
I mean, 2 big categories of problem.
All right. So Jack has been pacing back and forth, growling, muttering under his breath. And at some point, he stops, flips out his phone, finds a number, starts calling, gets on the phone. He's going to call Fenton.
Hello, Jack.
Fenton, why didn't anybody tell me how Archibald died?
I didn't not tell you. I mean, we've talked about it.
It's a weird thing to omit. How come Precarious just got exiled and isn't dead right now? Why didn't you grab the pack, hunt him down, and bury him?
There's a long pause. Things were very delicate at that moment, Jack. I was mayor for the next 7 years. I couldn't just go off and find him. By the time I wasn't mayor anymore, he was Prince of Hartford. It would have caused a major incident if I had killed him myself then. And, well, if you're asking if it eats at me, it does. Is this about Espinosa's trip?
Yes, it's about Espinosa's trip. If he's rising in the West, what is Espinosa doing?
It's being dealt with, Jack. Your uncle is on it. I fully expect that we won't have to worry about the Precarious of Cartley in a night or 2.
You sure about that?
Look, Espinosa has his faults, and we've had our disagreements, but he and I both share the same basic purpose of protecting the city of Salem at all costs. And Precarious is an obvious and recognizable threat to it. So he and Madame Mystere and Embervald and your Uncle Nate, they've gone to take care of things, and I trust that they will.
All right.
Between the 4 of them.
Mother McCree is definitely listening to this phone call on both sides, just FYI. And
Oh, right, she can.
and she is, for a woman who is normally relatively stoic, she is like the anger or like gritting on her, like she's gritting her teeth now. She knows Jack's not paying attention, but she is gritting her teeth at the rest of you.
Just to remind everybody, Madame Mystere is one of the associate justices of the Admiralty Courts and a former mayor. Embervald, the Viscount of Conflagration, is also associate justice of the Admiralty Courts and a former mayor. And Uncle Nate is Warden Nathaniel Foxglove, who is the warden of Wenham Lake and a member of Fenn's pack.
And Jack used the exact words on the written letter from Chamberlain. And he didn't even blink.
So what you're saying is it's going to be handled then, right?
I would have gone myself, but I cannot leave the environs of Salem as long as I'm Chief Justice. That's why Nate went instead.
I've just been I've been around for a while. I know I'm not been around as long as you, but I've never heard of anything like this before. This is not how things are supposed to be, right?
The Curious is an anomaly. It's a failure in an otherwise quite functional plan to keep the peace in our home. You're right. Things aren't supposed to be like this. Hopefully, in a few days, they won't be anymore.
All right. Sorry to bother you. I know it's an odd time.
It's quite all right. I appreciate that you came to me with this. I do feel badly that clearly you feel I may not have been as forthright with you as I should have been. I would like to fix that. If there's something else that worries you or feels out of place, I hope you'll come to me with it again. You're coming into your own. You have your own pack now, and you need to be prepared if it falls to you to be the next head of family.
Do the cousins know?
Again, I don't think that it was anything that was intentionally hidden. I guess I didn't really like talking about how father died in great detail.
I can understand that.
It may be that they've heard from conversations in the past. It may not be. Perhaps it's something we should really discuss at the next family meeting. I don't want them to feel that there was a shameful secret here.
I think it would be a good idea to talk with the family because I don't think that any of us realized the dangers were coming from within and not just from without. This is eye-opening to me, and it's going to change the way that I look at this town. Thanks, Fenton. Again, I'm sorry for bugging you.
No problem.
I'll hang up.
Okay.
So Mother McCreary just kind of lowers her eyes at Jack. You didn't see any virtue in maybe hiding the contents of the letter.
What do you mean?
Well, that correspondence is with a very dangerous man, and your uncle seemed to be well aware of its contents.
Yeah, you kind of use the exact words. 8-Ball is now just sitting on the desk, like she's cleared off a space and just climbed all the way up.
I don't understand.
You spilled the beans.
Oh, was that? I mean, it's Fenton. He's family. I didn't really realize that we were keeping beans, honestly.
I think we should, given that we are a collective mayor, we should assume that we have collective beans. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, yeah. But again, it's Fenton. He's not going to tell anybody.
Son, you need to start accepting the possibility that your uncle is not on the up and up.
What?
Or just, that he has different responsibilities and different connections. And so a thing that we might tell him, he might have to tell to the court, but we don't necessarily want that to go to the court because separation of powers, because we're the executive and he's the legislative and we don't necessarily,
Guys, listen. Truly just turns to Jack and says, Jack, sometimes even family keeps secrets from one another.
Yeah, no shit.
But beyond that, none of that was a surprise to him.
Not a surprise to him. It was also not a surprise to apparently the other former mayors. Some of them are there with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is the tally, Kelly? Can you give it to us? There's not been that many mayors. So all of the mayors are there except for...
So how many mayors? So there have been... So the very, very, very initial thing was that the mayor rotated every meeting. So they would serve for less than a year,
right,
each. And then they changed that very quickly to 7-year intervals. So let's see. The first of those was Archibald. He's dead. Sebastian, Ophelia Treme, Lady Artemisia Melancholy, Hezekiah, the Archduchess of Pandemonium, other court appointment, Mercurius of Cartley, Fenton, Embervald, Madame Mystere, and then Sebastian again. So basically, let's see, what you've just learned from Fenton is that the current mayor, along with 2 former mayors and another member of the city establishment, the warden of Wenham Lake. They went off to run this errand. Clearly, Fenton was read in about it. The only other people who are previous mayors who are alive, resident in Salem, are Azakachia, Lady Artemisia, and Ophelia Treme.
And he didn't mention them.
He did not mention them by name.
Yeah, I really feel like people are screwing with us right now.
So, like, those are 5 pretty powerful people.
Yeah.
They're
four pretty powerful
people. I mean, and Fenton seems to be under the belief that they will be able to take care of this issue. Possibly.
That's definitely the impression that he gave. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they must trust us, right? They must think that we can do the job. Otherwise, they wouldn't have told us to.
I mean, but just like thinking about this in terms of how not because it's in the charter or anything, but just because of this is the way that societies tend to work, and a society of secret monsters in specific, the more powerful you are, the more likely it is that you'll be elected mayor, right? So it's not exactly a list of the most powerful people in Salem, but it's up there just in terms of like raw arcane ability, right? And definitely that set of 4 that's pretty heavy hitters. I mean, just in terms of like Jack's sense of who's good at fighting, which is a pretty strong sense. And Werewolf is pretty good at keeping track of who's good at killing other people. Yeah, it's probably like 4 people all on the top 10 list of the most dangerous people in Salem. Yeah, that's probably true.
And they're meeting up with Chamberlain.
Right.
So the 5th one would be another super powerful vampire.
And assuming he's personally involved and not just sending them information.
Not just directing them, yeah.
Right.
Well, he said to meet me in the location, so...
No. In that case, yes.
He is at least, I mean, maybe not, but he's at least meeting them, and then they are going to take care of this situation, so...
Mm-hmm.
So I assume your reference to Hartford many, many times is that Hartford is a den of vampires?
So, let's talk about local regional politics for a minute. In any given area, we can probably say that there is someone who's at least nominally in charge, someone or some group that's at least nominally in charge of the sort of the secret, the shorthand we're using for this is veiled world, right? How strongly that is the case, like how strong their control is, will vary a lot, especially like the density and strength of control in a rural area is probably going to be a lot less strong than in an urban area, just because there's less people, there's less density, and so it's more porous. Some places you can say like there's one person in charge here. Some places you could say it's a group. A lot of those places it's heavily dominated by one type of monster, right? Like, okay, this is like vampires are really in control here. The main person in control is a vampire. All their main allies are vampires. It's kind of a vampire region. There's other places that you could say the same thing for Magi or for Aratha. And then there are other places where it's like at least a little bit blended, right? Like there's a vampire in charge here, but he has some mages working for him too, that kind of stuff. So,
and like any city that, or any like collection of vampires in most places will probably have a prince,
right,
even if that prince isn't in charge of the city for other people.
Right. Like Salem's unusual in that there is not supposed to be a prince of Salem. Mr. Chamberlain calls himself the prince in absentia, but that is definitely like not official position, and it's kind of an unusual circumstance. To some degree, in a city, in any place that has a population of more than 100,000, the default assumption is there's a vampire prince in this town. And it's unusual if there isn't, right? Like, for instance, there isn't a prince of Boston, but that's because Boston is an unusual place. And we can get into what the local veiled politics look like in Boston. But Hartford, has a vampire prince, like probably 40 to 50% of all of the cities in the United States do.
And is Salem mostly dominated by vampires, or?
So Salem is a mix, right?
I'm sorry, not Salem. Sorry, Hartford, I mean.
Hartford. Yes, definitely. Hartford would be a place that is mostly dominated. There are magi there. There are probably some fae too. But basically, if you get powerful enough that even without wanting to, you're a threat to the establishment there, you'll probably either get encouraged to leave or just killed if you're a threat to the power structure in a place like Hartford. Right. Vampires are kind of in charge there.
And with, one of the top 5 most oldest vampires in the Western Hemisphere as their prince, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it was, Hartford would be kind of a medium tier vampire settlement, just like by population, right? Place like Chicago is a much more high profile vampire area. But the person who's been in charge there, at least since the late 90s, is definitely personally powerful in a way that is like kind of big fish, small pond situation.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems a little weird that that Mercurius, being so powerful, wasn't already a prince elsewhere, and he had to try to seek it here, specifically in Salem.
Mm. Yeah, why did Mercurius of Cartley leave wherever he was before and come to Salem is probably a subject for the investigation that's on 8-Ball's list, right? Because it's definitely unusual. Old vampires don't tend to move around a lot because they have established centers of control, and you lose them when you move around. So there's presumably a story there.
Yeah, and crossing the Atlantic is kind of a significant risk.
It's a huge, incredibly significant risk. That's why. So there weren't vampires. There were almost no indigenous vampires. I'm not going to say no, but almost no indigenous vampires in the Americas pre-Columbian contact. So the really old vampires are all transplants.
Hmm.
Like Mr. Chamberlain. Mr. Chamberlain is a transplant, right? He came over from the old world.
Right. Okay, so that seems like a big thing, but it also seems like a thing we can't do a lot about. So from an executive standpoint, I'm going to say we should put that on the pay very close attention list. But I don't think we really have any action items beyond research there right now. Right?
As I said, I'm just going to prepare for Espinosa's return to give him some harsh words.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's first of all hope that all of them do return, and then have some kind of plan for how we interact with them moving forward.
Yeah. The one thing I would say, McCree, is get a bit of a beat on Espinosa before you lay into him, because he's going to kill his sire, which is firstly kind of a big deal, and secondly, 8-Ball looks kind of uncomfortable. There's like weird things that a vampire can do in that kind of situation that might make them more dangerous afterwards than they were going in. They're very taboo things, but given that all of this is real weird, I'm going to say we should not necessarily assume that they're off the table.
And Mother McCree just kind of like pulls her walking stick over her shoulder and puts it up as a walking stick and says, "Child, I think you think this is somehow my first battle."
Oh, no. I'm just saying that he might react in ways like, because also doing that can have some psychological repercussions, particularly in the short term. So he might react in ways that he wouldn't normally react, and maybe be more aggressive than you would expect from his previous behavior.
I expect nothing.
Okay, that's fair.
So if I may summarize in the interest of closing out this session, if I understand correctly, we're going to do some research into Mercurius of Cartley, and we're going to wait and see about what happens when Espinosa and the other, the group that went out to kill Mercurius of Cartley, returns.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think we're going to actively try and set up a meeting with the Ishmael contingent.
Got it. That's the plan.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've also established you haven't had time to decorate the office yet, but presumably you're going to decorate the office at some point, the Tuck Alley office, right? With, I don't know what that's going to look like. Be thinking about that, because the title card for the beginning of the next episode is 2 months later.
Oh, boy.
What?
Wait, how long were you supposed to be mayor?
3
2
days?
weeks, right?
Until Espinosa came back in a day or two.
That's it this week for The Chimera. Our theme music this season is Down Among the Dead Men, performed by Adrienne Howard, Emily Peterson, and Dirk I. Tiede. For information on other music used in this episode, check the show notes. You can support The Chimera by going to patreon.com/chimerapod. Patrons at any amount get access to behind-the-scenes setting and system info, art polls, and exclusive side games and one-shots. You can also find us online at thechimera.space or on Twitter and Facebook at ChimeraPod. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a new episode, so until then, thanks for listening.
This place is supposed to be a place of civilization. We're supposed to be good to one another. And someone brought silver. And someone pulled silver in a community meeting?